Hi, I'm Tim Sanders, and you are watching Voices of Authority, brought to you by Upwork. Today, our guest is John Hagel. He's one of the visionaries of the digital community that we all enjoy every single day. He's the author of multiple books, including Net Gain, Net Worth, and The Power of Pull. He is one of the leading management and strategic consultants in the world. John, thank you for being on the program.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts.
Wonderful. You've had a huge impact on my personal business life, John. I read Net Gain about 2 months into my experience working for Mark Cuban's startup. It was originally called AudioNet. It became Broadcast.com. And Net Gain really taught me the value of virtual communities, but more important, it helped me understand that I'd made a really good decision leaving the world of television and joining a digital streaming company. And in Net Gain, you said that digital technology is setting in motion this shift of market power from the makers of goods and services to the people that buy them. And I want to have you talk a little bit about that concept and how you've seen that transform over the last 2 decades.
Sure, it's part of what we call the big shift. I spent a lot of time studying the long-term forces that are reshaping the global economy. And one of them is the impact of digital technology infrastructures on a global scale in terms of giving more power to the customers. I mean, we as customers have more visibility into all the options that are available to us. We can get a lot more information about those options, and we can switch from one vendor to another if we're not getting our needs met. So customers are becoming more powerful, and I think they're also becoming more demanding. There's what I call the industrial bargain that shaped the growth of our economy for the past century, which was basically the proposition that if you want affordable products and services, we can provide those to you. But they have to be standardized mass market products and services. That's the only way we can make them affordable. And increasingly, we as customers are unwilling to accept that bargain anymore. We want a product or service that's tailored to our specific needs and will evolve with our needs as our needs evolve. And so I think vendors are under more and more pressure to move away from these standardized products and services to things that are much more tailored to individual customer needs.
In Net Gain, you also predicted quite correctly that there'd be a shift where the power moved to talented employees and away from the institutions that employed them. Talk about how that's playing out.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's a manifestation of the big shift as we describe it in the world, which is that companies are under increasing pressure for performance. One of the things I talk about in the big shift is this notion that there's a paradox that on the one side, there are global forces at work that are creating exponentially expanding opportunity. We can create much more value with far less resources, far more quickly than was ever imaginable in the past. On the flip side, same time, these forces are also creating mounting performance pressure. Competition is intensifying. The pace of change is accelerating. And so in that kind of environment, all of our institutions, companies in particular, are under more and more pressure. And in that context, they're going to have to find ways to create more and more value. And that requires really mobilizing and supporting the workforce, particularly the people who are on the front line that have the best sense of what the context is that they're operating in, and giving them the tools and support to really address unseen problems and opportunities to create more value. And it's part of this future of work discussion.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about future of work, but
Absolutely.
One of the things that I really emphasize in my discussions with executives is the one thing most people are not talking about is what should work be? What could work be? We all talk about things like automation. We talk about gig economy. We talk about, reskilling. All those things are important. But the most basic question of all is, given all the changes that are occurring, what should work be? And generalizing at a high level, I would say that most work in most large institutions today are tightly specified, highly standardized, routine tasks, right?
Yeah.
You've got the process manual that tells you exactly what needs to be done when.
Yeah.
That work is increasingly being taken by technology, by artificial intelligence, by robotics, which is great, actually. I think, we as humans should have never been doing that work. Unfortunately, somebody had to do it, so we were doing it. But as that capacity gets freed up, as people are no longer consumed with those routine tasks, rather than getting rid of them, what about redefining the work for them and saying, no, your real opportunity is to address unseen problems and opportunities to create more value. And now they have the time to even see the problems and opportunities. In the past, they were just so consumed with the tasks, they couldn't see anything in front of them. But not just see the opportunities and problems, but address them and learn from that how to get more and more value delivered to whatever context they're serving. So I think it's a huge opportunity. I don't see many companies yet focused on that part of future work.
I heard a young man at a conference just 2 years ago, John, called FounderCon. So this is Techstars. They're an incubator. And some of these young entrepreneurs, they have such a vision. So I was talking to him later and I said, what's your vision around talent? Like, how do you think about human capital? And he says, I want to create a company where every one of my full-time employees is an artisan to scale. And he says, if it isn't the pursuit of passion, we're going to put artificial intelligence on that work. Are you seeing more of that kind of young entrepreneurial vision around the pursuit of passion? I know you write a lot and you think a lot about passion, power of pull, you talk about it. Talk to me about this artisan work that I'm seeing this new generation looking to give their talents.
Yeah, many dimensions in those comments. One is this concept of passion. And I find again that, when I talk to senior executives of large companies, the focus today is on worker engagement. How do we get more engaged workers? And now semantics, it's used pretty loosely, but broadly what I find it means is, do you like the work you do? Do you like the people you work with? And do you respect the company you work for? That's an engaged worker. Yeah. It doesn't say anything about motivation to increase impact and value. It's just, I like what I'm doing. And that's fine. That's good. You should like what you're doing. But what we found was that to really get sustained extreme performance improvement, which is what you want in a world of mounting performance pressure, you need to find people with passion, because they're typically pounding the table saying, why couldn't we remove these barriers? Why couldn't we do this to get more impact? They're constantly striving to get to that next level of impact. They're frustrated. They're not necessarily happy. They're frustrated. And we need those people, because they're the ones who are going to help drive us to that next level of impact in the companies that we're working for. So I think that that's a missing element here in terms of, and it gets also to this whole notion of, everybody's talking about reskilling. Yeah. And the skills are depreciated at an accelerating rate, and we need to learn
what are your thoughts on
different new skills. I think that's definitely true. But the issue that I don't see people address is, what's the motivation to learn those new skills? Exactly. Right? And the unstated assumption, if I press on it, is, well, it's fear. If you
That's
don't
right. Save your
reskill,
job, learn a new one.
You're going to lose
right?
your job, right?
Right.
So, and while I certainly believe people can learn through fear, they're never going to learn as much or as fast as if they were motivated through excitement. Excitement about learning. And that's what the passionate people have. They're excited about learning. They're constantly striving to acquire new skills and get to new approaches that will help them to get more impact in whatever environment they're in. So that's, I think, again, a missing element. Very few, I haven't really found any large companies that are systematically measuring the passion of the workforce.
In NetGain, you were very prescient about Amazon. So folks, we have to go back to a world, and this was a world where I was talking to publishers. I was working on my first book deal. And around the time NetGain was really gaining so much popularity in business circles, Amazon was a rounding error, even to the one vertical they were disrupting, which was books. So I remember having a conversation in 2000 with the president of sales and marketing at Random, and he literally called Amazon a rounding error. He said if you took all of online book purchasing, it's a few % of our total sales. He shrugs it off. You also predicted that Amazon would rise not just a little bit, but a lot of bit. I remember years ago, you intimated they might even be $1 trillion company someday. Well, here they are. They're $1 trillion company. Break down Amazon's valuation today from your point of view about how they've become truly a digital company.
It's an interesting journey that they've been on, and I have huge respect for Jeff Bezos in terms of his vision and willingness to keep taking the company to the next level. He's got passion. And I think at the highest level, I would characterize Amazon as addressing a type of business that I think is increasingly central to the functioning of our economy. And it's what I call infrastructure management businesses. High volume, routine processing kinds of activities. And, he started with books, but his vision was that it would be about creating a scale-intensive retailing platform on the internet that would sell a growing range of products. That's why he never called himself Amazon Books. He wanted to preserve the option of serving a broader and broader range of products. And then the other piece that really took off was Amazon Web Services, which again, high volume routine processing, data centers online, right? Cloud computing. Again, huge need for that. And I think the interesting thing is that because of the kind of platform he's created, it helps to drive, we talked earlier about this notion of customers wanting more and more specialized products and services. The availability of platforms like Amazon help to support that, because now if I'm a small business and addressing a very small customer segment in terms of needs, let's say craft chocolate,
right?
I can focus my efforts on being creative in designing the chocolate. And then Amazon can help me connect with customers anywhere in the world.
Right.
I don't have to have my own platform. And I can use Amazon's cloud services to support my data operations in my company. I don't have to have a data center. So it makes it much more feasible for these small businesses to become highly profitable. And again, it's a bit of a paradox. The availability of very scale-intensive platforms, infrastructure management businesses like Amazon, encourages the growth of fragmentation in another part of the economy, the fragmentation of products and services.
Right.
And the two coexist and support each other in interesting ways.
And it really lowers the cost of production, which really disrupts the traditional model forever. But I want to stop and talk about Amazon Web Services. Now, John, another thing we can credit you with is that you and your good friend John Seeley Brown, who we're going to talk about in a minute, you two predicted cloud 10 years before cloud was cloud. So 2006, Amazon Web Services launches commercial cloud computing. And Colin Powell famously said there is no such thing as a cloud, it's just somebody else's computer. And as a result, it was one of those things where you were an idiot if you did it until that moment in time, about 4 or 5 years later, when you were an idiot if you didn't. So initially, people feared cloud services because they said, what? It wasn't reliable, it wasn't secure. If I can't see it at my facility, if I can't get in a car and go to the colo facility, it's not working. Help us understand the tipping point, right? Because everybody's on cloud. Everything we do around this show is going to move around in the cloud. I'm not mailing out hard drives with the results of this conversation. Help us understand how cloud adoption went from never going to do it to can't live without it.
Well, I think it has to do with the fundamental economics. Again, if you look at infrastructure management businesses, they are extremely scale intensive. The more scale you have, the more efficiently you can operate the business and provide lower cost services to the customers. So even, I think the cloud service providers in general started by focusing on smaller companies that didn't have the real resources to create their own data centers and services. But over time, as companies like Amazon gained scale, they could provide those services far more cost effectively than even the largest companies with the largest data centers. And there's also a flip thing related to talent, which is, again, you talked about the concern about security. In the early days, there was a lot of issue of, do I really want to turn over all my operations and data to some third party? But the growing realization was that those third parties like Amazon, because of their scale, were the best able to attract world-class talent in things like data security.
Right.
If you want the best data security people, they're going to go to the largest companies that have the largest operations where they can exercise their talents. And so, again, it created an advantage over time for these infrastructure management businesses like Amazon to really compete against even the largest companies who were trying to hold on to their data centers.
You're one of the leaders thinking around the future of work. I want to take this cloud analogy and I want to move it from tech to talent. So, as you know, Upwork, we're the largest on-demand talent platform in the world. And we started out as a freelance marketplace, nice place to match a freelancer with capacity and a company that needed some freelancing. And where we've kind of transitioned our business is to becoming a talent cloud and thinking much like AWS about what are those tool sets to guarantee reliability, security, transparency, to give the scale, et cetera. The future of work. Talk to me a little bit about companies that could benefit from thinking more about the talent cloud when it comes to how they think about their skills gaps, regardless of their challenge or their journey.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of opportunity embedded there. I think that I'm going to generalize again, but in my experience, the gig economy emerged initially around two drivers. One was the model of what we call scalable efficiency. I want to do things with lower and lower cost more efficiently. And for many large companies, there was the notion of, well, there's some work that I have that isn't continuing work, it's just episodic. So why should I pay a full-time employee who's not going to be used full-time? Why don't I just go out and contract? And by the way, I can maybe pay them less because I don't have to do things like benefits and all the rest. So, hey, that's great. So it was all about driving down cost. The other piece was there was certainly, even in the early days, a sense of needing to access certain expertise that wasn't available in the company. And so, yes, I can go to a third party to access that as needed, when needed. I think over time, there's a sense that there's a growing need to be able to connect in richer ways with a broader set of expertise and diverse perspectives so that we can learn faster. Again, part of our view around this notion of the big shift is that we're moving from an institutional model of scalable efficiency to a model of scalable learning.
Yeah.
And the learning model, one of my favorite quotes is from Bill Joy, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who once said, no matter how many smart people you have within your organization, just remember one thing. There are a lot more smart people outside your organization.
Yeah.
And so if you're really focused on scalable learning, you need to find ways to connect more effectively with a broader range of diverse third parties that can help you to learn faster. And that's where I think the gig economy really, that's where the future is going to be. And I'll also say that I think one of the shifts that I see playing out, and again, it's in the context of this focus on learning as a theme, is the gig economy. Again, generalization, but I'd say a lot of the gig economy is still solo workers who are just independently contracting to do work. I believe increasingly, one of the framings I have is that we're moving from the gig economy to the guild economy.
Oh, I like that a lot.
That increasingly, these independent workers are going to want to come together into small groups where they can learn faster together, because their motivation and need is to learn faster, as well as the employees within large companies. And they're going to do that much more effectively if they're working with particularly a small group of other passionate, contractors who really want to learn faster. And I think we're going to see more and more of those sustained groups contracting themselves as a group versus, you're just going to get me as an individual.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're talking now about The Power of Pull. I love that book. And
thank you.
In a minute, I'm going to ask you about the experience of working with John, because that had to be just really cool. I know you guys have been friends for a long time, but in The Power of Pull, you talk about the idea that employers that fail to provide learning opportunities and development to talents will lose those talents to companies that do. Talk to me a little bit about where you see the future of learning and growth from an enterprise standpoint.
Oh boy, that's a big topic. So I think that, again, it ties back, everything in my work is connected. So I apologize if I keep
strong through
back,
line.
But it's this notion, again, in the big shift of a world of mounting performance pressure and expanding opportunity. In that kind of world, the people who are going to be most successful and fulfilled are those who learn faster. And so we as individuals are increasingly having a sense that we need to learn faster. And many of us are beginning to develop a passion, and that's motivating us to learn faster. But it motivates us to now look at our work, whatever employment we have, and say, are we learning faster? Could we learn even faster somewhere else? And so companies that are not focused on helping their workers to learn faster, we believe are going to be at risk of losing them, because they're going to be more and more driven to find those employers who can help them learn faster. And I think it's a big issue. And I hasten to say, when I talk about learning in companies, most executives immediately go back to training programs. Oh, you mean we should have more training programs? No, no. Maybe you need some more training programs, but the most powerful and necessary learning is learning in the form of creating new knowledge, not just sharing existing knowledge in training programs. And that learning occurs in the work environment as you're addressing new problems and opportunities and finding new approaches for more impact. And so you're learning through action in the work environment together with others. And it's, I think, increasingly important for employers to ask the question, what kind of work environment could we design that will help our workers to learn faster on the job?
And that's a design issue.
Huge design issue. We did a major research initiative on this. We couldn't find a single company that had systematically taken design thinking and applied it to the work environment with the primary goal of helping to accelerate learning in the work environment. We ended up finding, we did 75 case studies of companies that had designed an element of the work environment and gotten very positive results in terms of accelerating learning. But it's again, a big untapped opportunity that I think is going to be more and more central to success in terms of attracting talent and retaining the talent. You know, everybody, when they talk about the war for talent, they talk about, okay, we just need to be more aggressive in recruiting, and we need to be more proactive if somebody's unhappy, giving them a good bargain so they'll agree to stay.
Yeah.
Very few people focus on what are we doing with the workers while we have them.
Right.
The war for talent is ultimately going to be won based on what you do while you have the workers.
Yeah.
Are you helping them to learn faster?
Yeah.
And if not, you're going to lose them, and you're going to have a harder and harder time recruiting them because word will spread. You're not going to learn in this environment. So.
I like this, and I like this a lot because I'm a huge fan of collaboration, but I believe that collaboration occurs, and I know you do too, in the diversity of perspectives. You've talked in your work before about that conflict that really drives solution finding. And so for those of you that are watching and you're saying, wow, I want to do what John's suggesting, I want to use design thinking to help the workers work in the moment and learn faster, I want you to think like Ed Catmull did at Pixar when Toy Story was canceled by Disney on Black Friday in November when they had too many problems. And Catmull went home and he said, we have to reach out widely, not just across Pixar, but across our whole community, even inviting people to the table we don't really know yet or trust yet, like claymation or stop action animators. And one of the things I took away from this, John, to your point, is that maybe learning and development could partner with engineering or the creative design group and marketing to, if you will, import a diversity of perspective into reimagining the learning and development process as embedded throughout the work experience, as opposed to put in an island called a program. Yeah. I want you to share with us a little bit your passion around the diversity of perspective and how important it is for us to bring that together in the work environment.
Well, it's been a key theme again in our work. It's very much driven again by the sense that the key imperative is to help people learn faster at scale. And our belief is that the people who, first of all, that you're going to learn faster as part of a small group than you are if you're just sitting in a cubicle as an individual. So it's coming together in these small groups that are driven by a mutual desire to have more and more impact. But then it's creating a practice, we call it productive friction, where within the work group, there is a constant desire and need to challenge each other. You're constantly challenging the other members of the group with new ideas, new approaches to get to better and better outcomes. And I think it's what's missing, unfortunately, in a lot of the current move, which is certainly at one level very positive towards creating more diversity in our work environments. Absolutely, we need more diversity. But the problem that I see, and again, I'm going to generalize, in most large organizations, when you get those diverse people sitting around a table, the message is follow the leader, watch the leader, and try to become as much as act as much as he does. And typically it's an older white man, because that's the way that you're going to be successful. And so all that diversity gets crushed. You know, it's just follow the leader, be like them. Versus, again, cultivating this culture of productive friction where the reason we want all this diversity is because you're coming at this from all kinds of different perspectives, and you can help us to learn faster by challenging each other. And the notion of productive friction is you're challenging each other with respect. You're not doing it to put each other down. You're doing it because you share a mutual desire to get to better outcomes. And that's ultimately what's going to drive faster learning and more impact in whatever environment you're in.
Just two questions to finish here. I am guilty of being one of those people that have been saying for years, data is the new oil. And honestly, John, the reason I always said that is I was just trying to help other business leaders understand how commercial data really was. It had value in and of itself. It was an energy for the organization. Multitudes of analogies abound. And then you shatter this in a recent blog post. You shatter this. You say instead, data is the new solar. My mind was blown. Unpack that just for a second for us.
Yeah, I won't go into all of the detail, but to me, metaphors matter. And while I certainly understand the use of the metaphor of data is the new oil to really drive home that it is a key energy source that will drive value creation for business, the challenge with oil is it is a diminishing resource. And it's becoming more and more expensive over time because it's a depleting resource. So, and in my mind, the real opportunity is to think of data as solar, and from a metaphor of solar energy, which is constantly renewing and actually decreasing in price over time because we're developing better and better technology to capture solar energy. So I think it's a much more energizing, if I can use the no pun intended, metaphor that will help to really describe the potential of data.
Edge Perspective, every once in a while you post some beautiful poetry and prose. And I'm showing some here on the screen. Really nice way with words. John, just tell us a little bit about why you do that and what that means to you.
No, well, it's a new journey of mine, a new learning opportunity. It was driven, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago. Somebody reading one of my articles said, you know, you have a very poetic form of writing. Yeah. And, you know, it was pure prose. I mean, I wasn't trying to write poetry, but it inspired me to say, wow, well, you know, maybe I should explore and try this this other form of communication, of poetry. And I think now I've done about 10 or 12 poems over the past couple of years just to develop that talent, that muscle. And I'm still in the early stages, but I find it very inspiring. I think it's a way of communicating partly through imagery rather than, you know, just data, and partly through I don't know what the right word is. It's just a more compact way of inspiring people to embrace some new ideas and perspectives and action.
Well, I love it here. And I want to thank you very much, John, for being on our program.
Thank you.